Good Erev Shabbos, Parshas Vayigash. We have in this week's Sejra finally the reunification of Yosef and his brothers, Yosef and Yaakov. And indeed, when the brothers come to Yaakov to tell him that Yosef is still alive, Yaakov is initially somewhat incredulous. However, Pasuk says, Vayar, he sees Hagalos, the wagons that Yosef had sent along with the brothers for Yaakov, and Yaakov overcomes his disbelief. And the question is, what is the meaning of these wagons that somehow helps Yaakov to overcome his disbelief and to feel a sense of renewed joy in life, Vatachi ruach, that he feels a revived spirit? There are a variety of approaches, and they're all based on the following medrash. The medrash tells us that Yosef sending the agalos, these wagons, is a secret message, a hint, if you will, to Yaakov. The word agala is similar to the word egla. And this is to remind Yaakov of the egla arufa ritual. That is, so the word agala, wagons, egla arufa, the ritual. The egla arufa ritual, to remind ourselves, is when, God forbid, there is a murder victim found between two cities. So one of the cities is assumed to have been responsible in that they didn't properly escort the person out of the city, giving him the proper protection, the internal fortitude that he would have in order to fend off any potential attackers. And so therefore, one of the cities is to be held responsible. And it's the closer of the two cities that is considered the responsible city. And the Zakanim, the elders of the city, have to state and then take a vow that they did not ignore the person. And there's a whole ritual to atone and for the city to bear responsibility. So in essence, the Egla Arufa ritual is about assuming responsibility. And here, there are three approaches to what Yosef meant by sending Yaakov these agalos to remind him of the Egla Arufa. So number one is that Yosef was expressing a sense of love to his father. He's basically saying, Daddy, I love you. How so? When Yosef's whole journey and odyssey began, it began with Yaakov escorting Yosef. And the Medrash tells us that Yaakov escorted Yosef, and Yosef says, Dad, it's time for you to turn around and go home. And Yaakov says, no, it is a fundamental tenet of Jewish life that when you have a guest, you walk them a distance in order to help them, to protect them, to feed them, to attend to their needs. And so Yosef here is saying, all these years later, I remember what you did for me, Yaakov. I remembered the lesson that you taught me about holding on and protecting, and therefore, I am going to do that for you now. I am going to, in a sense, repay the favor and show that I remember the good that you did for me. And as such, I am sending you these royal wagons, which you will sit in and come back to Egypt in. I am going to escort you now, at the end of this odyssey, at the end of this journey, as you did for me all those years earlier. I am expressing to you, Yosef, my sense of love and appreciation. Indeed, the Mefarshim say that the reason that Yaakov believed that this indeed was Yosef, because only a son would put in the time, the effort, the energy, and expense to send this vast entourage of wagons to carry him back to Mitzrayim. For some stranger to do that, it wouldn't be likely. And so, therefore, this expression was not just simply a way to get Yaakov down to Mitzrayim, but it was an expression of love and intimacy and appreciation from a son to a father, as only a son could do. And in that moment, Yaakov vatachi ruach, his soul was revived, his spirit was revived. The second approach is that Yosef was saying to Yaakov, I apologize. You know, some of the Mefarshim say that Yaakov didn't believe that Yosef was alive in Mitzrayim initially when the brothers told him, because if he was alive, and indeed he was the ruler of Egypt, why did he let Dad sit in such misery all this time? And so the brothers explained to him the whole story. This was the divine intervention. This was part of the plan, the original dreams, etc. And Yaakov looks at these wagons, and in these wagons that remind him, Eglah, Agala, and Eglah Arufa, Yosef is basically telling Yaakov the following: I apologize to you, Yaakov. I know that I abandoned you. I know that at some point I could have reached out to you. I could have assuaged your sense of suffering and pain. And in a certain level, at that moment, by not showing up, I abandoned you. And so I am telling you, Yaakov, my father, I didn't forget the lesson of Eglah Rufa. I didn't forget the lesson that one has to be concerned and show support and escort and protect their guest, their loved one, their neighbor. I didn't forget the moral message of Eglah Arufa. I couldn't come to you until now for a variety of reasons. This was the plan. This was the prophecy. This was the chalom needing to unfold. But this statement of sending Yaakov the wagons, the agalos, in order to remind him of the Eglah Arufa, is not to remind Yaakov, but to tell Yaakov that I, Yosef, did not forget the lesson of Eglah Arufa. I'm here to tell you that I'm here to escort you now. And in this, I express my sincere apology and my desire for you to feel comfort that your son has not abandoned you. Third approach is that Yosef was saying to Yaakov, despite it all, I have good reasons to be pretty upset right now, to be pretty resentful for how I was treated by the brothers, by my brothers over the course of time. And despite it all, I want you to remember, Yaakov, I want you to know that I did not forget the message of Eglah Rufa. And the message of Eglah Rufa, beyond anything else, is the message of assuming responsibility. The town which is nearest to the murder victim must assume responsibility. Eglah Arufa is about saying, I am responsible. Kol Yisrael Arevim Zelazeh. We're all responsible for one another. And even though I have great reason to be resentful and to shirk my responsibility to my family, I want you to know that I remember that I am responsible, my duty to you, my duty to the brothers, my duty to the future of Klal Yisrael. Remember in last week's Sedra, Yosef says, the Torah says, that Yosef remembered the chalomos, the dream, asher chalam lahem, that he dreamed not about his brothers, but for his brothers. He remembered his responsibility and his duty. And Yosef is saying, Father, I am still your son. I still have your values. I still have your morals. I still have the ethics that you taught me all those years ago. And I'm here to assume my responsibility. That's what it means to be a Ben Yaakov. That's what it means to be a Ben Yisrael. And Yaakov sees these agalos, and he says, indeed, Yaakov, my son, is still alive. Not just the physical body, but the spiritual essence of who he is, as being a part of Bnei Yaakov, of Bnei Yisrael. And with that, Yaakov is revived. So it seems to me that as we look at this story, and we see the message that Yosef sends to his father, a message of love, a message of reconciliation, of explanation and apology, a message of responsibility, a message that Yosef says we are one, and I will be the bearer of our tradition, and I will bear the responsibility of carrying it forward. It seems to me that taken together, these are all important messages that we can apply to our lives, to our relationships, and to our commitment to Torah and to Avodas Hashem. Good Shabbos to all.